You know that feeling, right? You're suddenly wide awake, staring up at the ceiling in pitch black, and it's exactly 3 a.m. You're just lying there, feeling frustrated, kind of anxious, maybe a little broken. You toss, you turn, and then, bam, the mental math begins. Okay, if I fall asleep in exactly 5 minutes, I can still get, 3 hours and 12 minutes of sleep before my alarm. It's this universally agonizing feeling. You wonder what on earth is wrong with you, and why you can't just sleep like a normal person. Well, welcome to this explainer. We're going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about a good night's rest. We're going to see why that 3 a.m. wake-up call isn't exactly what you think it is.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because when you wake up in the middle of the night, your immediate assumption is probably that your body is just flat-out malfunctioning. In our modern world, we literally treat this midnight wakefulness as a medical disorder, right? We call it insomnia. We look at it as this frustrating glitch in our biology, something that urgently needs to be medicated or suppressed or just fixed. Think about the sheer amount of time, money, and stress we dump into fighting this. We're popping melatonin gummies, downloading those pricey sleep tracking apps, burying ourselves under heavy-weighted blankets, and cranking up white noise machines, all just to force our brains back offline. We are desperate to fix this quote-unquote problem. But what if the way we expect to sleep right now is actually the true malfunction?
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to pull the lens way, way back. For over 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors survived in near total darkness. I mean, for 99.9% of human history, when the sun set, the world went completely, impossibly dark. Imagine literally not being able to see your own hand in front of your face. They didn't have flashlights, and honestly, for most of that time, they didn't even have candles. They just had the black sky, the moon, the stars, and whatever tiny fire they could manage to keep going. That kind of profound darkness and the terrifying vulnerability that came with it was deeply, biologically hardwired into human DNA over hundreds of thousands of years. So we really need to shift our perspective away from our modern, artificially glowing bedrooms and look back at that ancient biology to see what humans actually did with all those long, dark hours.
Today, we basically demand one solid, continuous, unbroken block of 8 hours of sleep. If we wake up for even 20 minutes, we totally panic. We're like, great, my entire tomorrow is ruined. But for thousands of generations, humans experienced a totally different rhythm. It was a two sleeps phenomenon. They had a first sleep, then a designated fully awake period in the middle of the night, followed by a second sleep. Waking up naturally in the dead of night, getting out of bed, doing something for an hour or two, and then going back to sleep, that was perfectly normal. Sleeping in one giant unbroken stretch was literally never the expectation for our ancestors.
The person who really brought this massive historical twist to light was historian Roger E. Eckerch. Back in 2001, he published this groundbreaking paper that essentially forced the scientific and historical communities to rethink, everything. He had spent 16 years painstakingly digging through old archives and records, and he found something nobody expected. He uncovered over 500 historical references just hiding in plain sight, all pointing to this lost human habit. He proved definitively that sleeping in one solid 8-hour block was a purely modern invention. The assumption that we always slept like we do now was so deep, so blindly accepted, that for centuries historians had actually been mistranslating ancient texts just to make them fit into our modern sleeping habits. Crazy, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates just how widespread this was, because the sheer volume of evidence Eckerch uncovered is absolutely staggering. He found mentions of first and second sleep spanning across centuries, across borders, and through entire cultures. We're talking about everyday court records from the 1400s that casually mention a witness waking up between their first and second sleep, their intimate diaries, medical texts, and letters from ordinary working-class people just outlining their midnight routines. The references even go all the way back to passages in Homer's Odyssey, detailing characters rising in the dark hours. So first sleep and second sleep wasn't just some rare quirk for a few eccentric nobles, and it wasn't a localized trend. It was a daily, universal reality for thousands of years of human existence.
People would naturally go to bed shortly after sunset, sleep for about 4 hours, and then wake up. But here's the thing. This wakeful period in the middle of the night wasn't frustrating insomnia, not at all. It was a peaceful, quiet state of consciousness actively used for connection and deep thought. Actually, a 16th century French physician highly recommended that couples conceive children during this specific window because they'd be wonderfully well rested and relaxed. People would casually visit neighbors in the dark, they'd stoke the fire to keep warm, they'd interpret their dreams while the imagery was still super vivid, or they'd simply lay in bed and chat with their bedmates. A doctor's manual from the 1500s even called this period the watch, advising that the quiet, undisturbed hours between first and second sleep were hands down the absolute best time for deep study and reflection.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because historical journals and old diaries are one thing, right? But actual biological proof is a whole other ballgame. Could this ancient rhythm really still exist inside us today? Well, modern science decided to find out. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware over at the National Institute of Mental Health ran a really fascinating, highly controlled experiment. He wanted to see exactly what would happen if modern 20th century humans were stripped of all their conveniences and subjected to the exact same lighting conditions as our ancient ancestors. And what he discovered ended up validating those historical records in a way literally no one saw coming.
He broke the experiment down step by step. First, he took a group of volunteers and completely removed all artificial light from their lives for 14 hours every single night for an entire month. And guess what? Within weeks, every single subject naturally reverted to their ancient programming. Without anyone prompting them, they automatically settled into a pattern of 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, and then 4 more hours of sleep. Finally, Weir measured their brains during that awake window. He found they were producing highly elevated levels of prolactin. Now, prolactin is a meditative hormone. It's actually the exact same chemical your brain releases to give you that deep physical sense of peace after a really good massage or a profound meditation session. So these subjects weren't stressed out about being awake at 3 a.m. They were experiencing a lost, profoundly peaceful state of human consciousness.
So if this natural rhythm was so amazingly peaceful, why on earth did we ever abandon it? To understand that, you have to realize just how deeply our ancestors feared the night. It was a time of true, literal vulnerability. Fun fact, the word curfew actually comes from the French couvre-feu, which means to cover or extinguish the fire. In medieval towns, a bell would ring signaling that fires absolutely must go out. Night was strictly meant for sleep and darkness. In fact, in a lot of medieval European cities, walking outside after dark without a lantern wasn't just considered highly suspicious, it was literally illegal. People were terrified of the dark. The night was believed to belong exclusively to criminals, predators, and the supernatural. If you were out in the pitch black, you were either up to no good or you were about to be a victim.
Because we feared the dark so intensely, we relentlessly sought to conquer it. And we can track this rapid assassination of the night on a remarkably short timeline. In the 1600s, Paris started installing street lamps specifically to cut down on crime. Then the 1800s brought widespread gas lamps to major cities. And then the big one. In 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. Just think about the math there for a second. We had 300,000 years of evolutionary biology locked into natural darkness. And then, in a mere 140 years of electric light, the industrial age just flooded our entire world with cheap, abundant, artificial daylight. We successfully pushed back the darkness, sure, but in doing so, we completely shattered hundreds of thousands of years of carefully calibrated evolutionary rhythm in the absolute blink of an eye.
So the crucial point is this. Your body, strictly biologically speaking, really doesn't know the difference between a light bulb and the actual sun. Modern humans are exposed to an average of 7 to 8 hours of artificial light after the sun actually sets. When you're lying in bed, doom scrolling through social media at 11 p.m., you are literally lying to your brain. When that harsh blue light from your phone screen or your reading lamp hits your retina, it completely tricks your brain into thinking it's still high noon. It aggressively delays the release of your sleep hormone melatonin and violently fragments your entire natural sleep cycle.
But here is the truly incredible part about all this. That ancient biological rhythm isn't gone. It hasn't been bred out of us. It is still buried right there inside your DNA, literally just waiting for the lights to go out. Have you ever noticed how utterly exhausted you get just sitting around a campfire by like 9 p.m.? That's your biology taking over. Researchers have found that if you take people camping for just 1 week, removing them entirely from artificial light, screens, and all our modern visual distractions, their body's melatonin cycle naturally resets by nearly 2 hours. Their bodies just start producing melatonin right at sunset again, exactly like our ancestors. That 300,000-year-old programming quickly reasserts itself the exact moment you step away from modern lighting.
We really have to realize that by lighting up our nights and banishing the dark, we didn't just change our bedtimes. We essentially eliminated an entire phase of human consciousness. That quiet, reflective state of the watch between first and second sleep just doesn't exist for most people anymore. And when it does happen, we label it insomnia. We treat it like a disease to be cured rather than a rhythm to be embraced. Now look, it's completely valid to feel frustrated when you're exhausted and just want to sleep, I get it. But I really want you to reframe this entire paradigm. Your 3 a.m. wakefulness is not a glitch, it's not a disease. It's a beautifully preserved biological function that's simply out of sync with a chaotic modern world that absolutely refuses to turn off the lights.
So, I want to leave you with a provocative thought that completely flips the script on your sleep anxiety. What if waking up at 3 a.m. isn't your body malfunctioning at all? What if it's just your body remembering exactly what it was built to do? The next time you wake up in the middle of the night, instead of immediately reaching for your phone or aggressively doing the mental math about the hours ticking by, just try lying there in the quiet. Embrace the dark. You might just be stepping into the exact same peaceful, reflective space your ancestors enjoyed for hundreds of thousands of years. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you completely rethink the dark.